What is volume? It's the amount of space that a substance or object occupies. It's like filling a glass of water up. Alright, so the first object we're going to talk about is a cylinder. And a cylinder has a base of a circle, and you basically stack up your base, which is your height. So it's like a whole bunch of circles stacked up on top of each other. And the formula for the volume, or how much substance you can put inside a cylinder, is volume, V, equals pi r squared times height. This pi r squared is just the area of the base, the circle. So, for an example,
find the volume of a cylinder which has a radius of 7 inches and a height of 5 inches.
Alright, a good first step is to always write your formula down. So we have volume equals pi r squared times height. So it's always good to do this before we start plugging in any numbers that we have in the problem. So in the problem we have a radius is 7 inches, so that is our r. And we have a height is 5 inches, so that's our h. So to substitute these in, or plug them in, we can say volume equals pi times 7 squared times our height of 5. 7 squared is 49, so we have pi times 49, and multiply that by 5. And 49 times 5, got my calculator here, is 245. So we can just leave this at 245 pi. And if your question asked for you to have a decimal answer, you would write this 245 times pi, which would be 245 times pi, which is approximately, let's put it down here, 769.69. So depending on what the question asked, you would write it like this, but if it asked for a decimal answer, you would write it as 769.69. because pi is approximately 3.14. The next object we want to talk about is a cone. And here you can think of like a party hat or an ice cream cone. And the volume here is 1/3 pi r squared being the base, times the height, or the distance from the center to the top point here.
If you want to connect this with the volume of a cylinder, you can do that. So if you have a cone that's filled, it would be you would have to pour 3 of those into a cylinder, if that makes sense.
We'll compare the two.
So the volume of a cylinder was just pi r squared times h, and for a cone it's 1/3 of that.
Alright, example of this is find the volume of a cone with a radius of r and a height of 4.9. So here we drew another example of a cone, and the radius is just the radius of my base is 1.7, and the height is 4.9. And I didn't put units on there, so we just say units. So first step is to write the formula. Volume equals 1/3 pi r squared times height. And we know that the height is 4.9 and the radius is 1.7. So let's substitute these in. 1/3 pi times 1.7 squared times 4.9. So I'm going to take my calculator out for this one. Say 1/3 times pi times 1.7 squared times 4.9. And that gives me a decimal answer of 14, this means approximately, 14.8 4.83. And I rounded it to 2 decimal places. So let's look at another figure. This one's a sphere. So you can think of Earth, or you can think of a ball, like a basketball or a baseball. And this is basically just a circle here in the middle and other smaller circles that come up to a point at the top and to the bottom. All right, so for a sphere, the volume equals 4/3, 4/3, pi r cubed. And an example would be,
Find the volume of a sphere if the radius is 5 centimeters.
all right, so a radius would be a point from the very middle to the outside. So like the very center of the Earth to the outside, but this would be a very small Earth. So find the volume of a sphere if the radius is 5 centimeters. So we know that r is 5 centimeters. Let's start by writing our formula. Volume equals 4/3 pi r cubed. And now let's substitute the radius into the formula. So this equals 4/3 pi 5 cubed. 5 cubed, 5 times 5 is 25, and 25 times 5 is 125. So this equals 4/3 pi times 125. 125 times 4 is 500, and then we keep this denominator of 3. So our answer can be 500/3 pi. And this is a fine answer unless it asks you to, if the question asks you to leave it in a decimal form or put it in a decimal form, then you would need to type this into your calculator and leave it as a decimal.